In fact, the president is fulfilling his promise to restore a Department of Justice that demands accountability. And it is not weaponizing the Department of Justice to demand accountability for those who weaponized the Department of Justice.
It comes just days after President Trump fired a top federal prosecutor who was originally appointed by the president and did not find any evidence to back up allegations that New York Attorney General Letitia James committed mortgage fraud. Let's get right to our Justice Department reporter, Alex Mallon, also former federal prosecutor Neama Rahmani. So, Alex, who is Trump wanting to go after here?
Well, specifically, Kira, he's singled out former FBI Director Jim Comey. He's singled out New York Attorney General Letitia James, and he singled out Senator Adam Schiff, all in those tweets that we saw over the weekend, essentially demanding Attorney General Bondi move to bring these prosecutions, despite investigators not being able to find sufficient evidence to do so. And Kira, we saw this in his first administration a lot, where he demanded investigations, and those investigations were simply resisted. This term, he is actually his Justice Department is indeed following through and launching these investigations. The difference is that they are not turning up any evidence that would, warrant a criminal case. And the problem is that the White House and President Trump in particular are choosing not to accept that. We heard White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt during the briefing today when she was pressed by our own reporter Selena Wang about, was this weaponization? She called it no. This is about accountability. But if you bring that argument before a judge or bring an argument before a grand jury, or eventually if it gets to trial, a jury, it really remains the question as to whether this entire process has been tainted by President Trump directly singling out these people by name and demanding that they be prosecuted merely because they have either targeted him with investigations in the past or been among his most prominent political critics.
So, Neama, if no evidence of wrongdoing is found, is there anything more that Trump can do?
Well, he can continue to try to find prosecutors that will pursue these cases, even though they don't have any legal merit, Kira. But I mean, the issue here is the following. This is going to potentially undermine and erode the public's trust in our criminal justice system. And I know that President Trump believes that he was treated unfairly, and a significant percentage of the American people do. But you're really bringing a sledgehammer to this. So Letitia James obviously sued Donald Trump civilly, right, to prosecute her criminally. That's obviously taking it one step further. Adam Schiff, of course, had the impeachment proceedings in Congress. Again, very different than putting someone in prison. And then you're talking about other people like Comey. That investigation didn't go anywhere. In fact, he may have helped Donald Trump during his campaign against Hillary Clinton. And then folks like John Bolton, who were just simply critics of the president. He had his home raided by law enforcement recently. So really, we're seeing an escalation, which may be difficult to pull back from. We're not a country that prosecutes our political opponents. So hopefully cooler heads can prevail, and the prosecutors that are at the Department of Justice don't move forward with non-meritorious cases.
So, Alex, have we heard from the Department of Justice since Trump started this pressure campaign on Pam Bondi?
No, they've been completely silent, Kira, but we do know that earlier today, Attorney General Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche did swear in President Trump's pick for the Eastern District of Virginia U.S. Attorney, Lindsay Halligan. She previously served as a special assistant to the president. She has no prosecutorial experience, and she's going to be taking over one of the most distinguished and largest U.S. attorney's offices that's responsible for things like national security cases, espionage, terrorism, and she also will be taking over the investigations of New York Attorney General Letitia James and FBI Director Jim Comey, and where the prosecutor we saw last week obviously was fired, Eric Siebert, after he went to the Justice Department and informed them that his investigators had turned up no evidence in the case of James that would suggest that she knowingly violated the law and the allegations of mortgage fraud that have been leveled against her by President Trump's allies. So really going to be closely watching as to whether now that Halligan is in place, if those prosecutions do indeed move forward, Kira.
All right, Alex, Neama, thanks, guys.